Hello, dear listeners. You are welcome to this channel, Unique Educational Consult. It's been a while on this channel. My apologies. Today, we want to consider one of the literary work in literature as recommended by West Africa Examination Council. I'm talking about WAEC, so also NECO, GCE, JAM, UTME, and also the channel is for the benefit of other people who are the lovers of literature and English language. We want to look at one of the drama work, and this is Fences by August Wilson. It's a literary piece that is drama recommended for the West African Examination Council, the candidates sitting for it. And to start with, we are going to look at the plot summary and the setting of this particular literary piece. Fences by August Wilson begins in 1957 with 53-year-old Troy Maxson and his longtime friend Jim Bono drinking on Troy's porch. It was a Friday, which is a payday night ritual. The friends, both trash collector or garbage collector, discussed their boss, Mr. Rand, and a complaint Troy had filed about working conditions that deny black garbage workers the opportunity to drive garbage trucks. Bono asks about Alberta, a woman he has seen in Troy's company. Troy ignores his friend's inquiries. He does not bother about what he's talking about. Here comes another character, Rose, who is Troy's wife for 18 years. She joins Troy and Jim on the porch. Troy explains to Jim about how he and Rose first met. Rose corrects his version of what happened. Troy and Rose disagree about shopping at the local black grocery store versus shopping at A&P supermarkets. Their difference of opinion continues when they discuss their teenage son, Corey, and his plans to play college football. College football recruiters want to talk to them about their son, but Troy shows no interest. As a young man, Troy was a great baseball player, but he says segregation kept him out of the major leagues, an experience that has embittered him all this while. Troy then recalls and reenacts a near-death experience he had while he was sick with pneumonia, a story he tells most often. Leonce, in his own early 30s, is Troy's son by an earlier marriage, that is, the marriage before he gets married to Rose. He stops by to say hello. Troy anticipates that he wants to borrow money. Leonce rejects Troy's offer to get him a job because it is his music that gives him life meaning, that gives his life meaning, which means he loves music. Troy directs his son to get $10 from Rose because she is the one who gets her husband's paycheck every Friday. Therefore, in Act 1, Scene 2, Troy wants Corey's help building the fence he has promised his wife he will build. Rose tells him a son, that is, tells a son is at football practice. Troy's brother Gabriel appears in the scene. Because of a war injury on his head, Gabriel believed he is actually the archangel Gabriel from the Bible. He recently moved out of Troy's house and he is proud of the move, but he thinks it upsets Troy. Troy used the money given to Gabriel for his war injury to pay for the house they have shared until now. So also in Acts 1 scene 3, Corey comes home and Troy rebukes him about falling behind on his chores. That is the work he needs to do. As they work on the fence together, Corey tells Troy he left his job to focus on football. Troy continues to refuse to meet with the football recruiter despite Corey's pleas, and he insists his son gets another job. When Corey asks Troy why he doesn't like him, Troy talks about responsibility. After Corey leaves, Rose asks Troy why he will not allow his son to play football. Troy clearly does not trust the recruiter or understands that times have changed. In Act 1, Scene 4 as well, this takes place on the next Friday night with Troy and Bono engaged in their weekend ritual, that is, the drinking style. Troy tells Rose, Bono, and Leonce that Mr. Rand has made him the first black driver in history. Troy and Bono talk about their fathers and how they left home. Later, when Corey comes home, he is furious, very angry that Troy has forbidden the coach to let him play football or be recruited by a college team. The act ends after Corey insults Troy, who tells his son that strike one. That is, that strike one. More so, as seen in Acts 2, it opens to Troy, who has posted bail for Gabriel after the disabled veteran was arrested for disturbing the peace. Bono reminds Troy that Rose is a good woman, and Troy admits to having an affair with Alberta. He says he loves Rose but cannot end the affair. Troy confesses to Rose that Alberta is going to have his child. Troy tries to explain what the affair means to him, but Rose turns to walk away, accusing Troy of taking but never giving. Troy grabs her roughly, and Corey hits his father. Troy is ready to strike back, but Rose stabs him. He calls strike two on Corey. He calls strike two on Corey. You can also see in Act 2, Scene 2. This occurs 6 months later. Alberta is about to have the baby. Troy has signed papers to have Gabriel institutionalized, and Troy is now entitled to half of Gabriel's money every month. As Rose accuses Troy of selling out his brother, a phone call informs them Alberta has died in childbirth. The scene ends with Troy challenging Death, who has taken Alberta to come to him. In Act 2, Scene 3 as well, Troy brings home his infant daughter. Rose agrees to help Troy care for the baby but says she is finished with him. Act 2, Scene 4 takes place on another Friday night a few weeks later. Leons returns money he had borrowed from Troy, and Bono, who has not visited for some time, stops by. The two also see each other less often at work since Troy's promotion. Their connection has been lost. Corey comes home and tries to force his way past his father, who is drunk and singing on the steps. The two get in a verbal fight that turns physical. Troy throws Corey out of the house. As he leaves, Corey says he has no intention of coming back. Alone, Troy taunts death again. In Act 2, Scene 5, which takes place 7 years later, it is morning, the morning of Troy's funeral. Corey, a corporal in the U.S. Marine Corps, returns home for his father's funeral. Jim compliments Corey on his achievement and tells him, "Your daddy knew you had it in you." Leons, who has been in prison for cashing other people's checks, had received permission to attend his father's funeral. Still bitter, however, Corey informs his mother that he does not plan to attend the funeral. Rose reminds him that Troy was his father. Corey and his half-sister, Renelle, strike up a conversation and begin to sing Troy's childhood song about Old Blue, which prompts Corey to change his mind and attend his father's funeral. Gabe, which is also known as Gabriel, who is still institutionalized, also had received permission to attend his brother's funeral. Gabe sees this as a momentous time. He takes out his trumpet and prepares to signal St. Peter to open the gates of heaven for Toy, that is for Troy. When no sound comes out, he does a ritualistic dance and chants. In the play's final moment, we are told the gates of heaven are wide open. This family shows many of the problems that African Americans faced during their time dealing with racism, lack of money, insufficient job opportunities, and the stress of holding it together. It ends somewhat sadly with most of the characters in worse situations than where they began, almost all due to Troy's influence on their lives. The only one with true potential for success is Renelle, since Troy is gone and she can make her own decisions without his influence. That is the plot summary of the play. And as well, we want to look at the setting of the play. And when we say setting, it has to do with three things involved. We have physical setting, social setting, and psychological setting. That will be discussed much later on the channel in another video. So, setting of the play, Fences. Fences is set up in the modest home of Troy Maxine, a dirt compound with a two-story brick house set off a back alley. Two junkie chairs sit on a porch that badly needs to be painted. This description suggests that The Maxins are not exactly rich, but barely get by on Troy's garbage collector salary. Being a family of little means, we are reminded that money is a constant concern for Troy and his family. The location of Maxin's house is in Pittsburgh, even though the name Pittsburgh is not actually mentioned in the play. There are signs to believe the play is set there. For instance, Pittsburgh was the playwright's hometown, and almost all of the plays in his 10-play cycle take place there. The play also directly mentions many Pittsburgh landmarks, like the Strip District, a popular market area. Pittsburgh as a setting seems to be particularly significant because of what the town and other northern industrial cities represented for many black people. In the decades following the Civil War, many African Americans migrated northwards to escape the poverty and the racial discrimination of the South. They hoped to find work in the factories, but were often disappointed. Troy discusses not being able to find work when he first came to Pittsburgh. He ended up living in a shack and resorted to crime to survive. In some ways, Pittsburgh represents promise and promises broken. The place time period, which was the 50s, 1950s, is also important to think about. Some progress had been made in terms of race relations since Troy was younger. Probably the most significant bit of progress to the play is that pro sports teams had begun to be integrated. Of course, this seems to only piss off Troy the more because it wraps the racial discrimination he experienced as a baseball player in his face. It is important to note that even though progress had been made at this point in American history, there was still a long way to go. We are to note that this was before the days of the civil rights movement. The South was still officially segregated, and in the North, many African Americans faced unofficial racial barriers. The racial tensions of the time definitely contribute significantly to the conflicts in the play. The time setting of the play also assumes some importance because the 1950s represents a time of great upheaval in race relations in the United States. Trey Maxim represents a previous generation that now watches the world move on around them. They have been maligned by white transgression in the past and yet have been able to procure a small portion of the country's booming wealth for themselves. Troy dies, however, in 1965, the year of the greatest legislative triumph of the civil rights era. He is not able to enjoy the victory that he helped bring about. That is about the setting in forms or in terms of time and also physical setting. That is all about what we are going to discuss today, and look forward to more videos to come on this particular literary piece, the drama Fences by August Wilson. Thank you for being there. Do not forget to share the link to this channel for people to know. Like, comment as to what next to do or what you want us to do in order to help this channel grow. Thank you once again.